Since the middle of February, we have seen the wave of Arab unrest spread to the Gulf countries. The governments there are taking some steps to try to deal with or preempt unrest, but so far they're very much focusing on economic fixes and usually quick fixes, basically public spending handouts. They're doing much less to address some of the structural political factors that drive people's grievances there. In the case of Saudi Arabia in particular, the political reform process has pretty much stagnated since 2005. Last week, the Saudi king returned to his country after 3 months where he was overseas for medical treatments, and he announced a major package of new public spending. So that was a $37 billion package, although that actually translates into about $2,000 per national, which doesn't sound quite so dramatic. But he was addressing real economic grievances. He was talking about a new allowance for the unemployed, and unemployment is a major political and social issue there. He talks about a new fund to build affordable housing, again something that's in short supply. These are all important steps, but the political issues really aren't being addressed. We saw the week before he returned to the country 7 men thrown in jail for the crime of setting up a political party, which is still illegal in most of the Gulf states. The situation in Bahrain is very polarised now, and I think it has become polarised partly because of anxiety from the other Gulf countries. I mean, it was very telling that the GCC foreign ministers held an emergency meeting in Manama a couple of weeks ago, just as the police response to the protests there was really escalating. They backed the Bahraini government very firmly, warned against foreign meddling, which is usually code for Iranian interference that they allege. But it does appear that especially the Saudis will have been leaning on the Bahrainis to show what they would see as a firm hand to not tolerate protests, which frankly are fairly normal and fairly routine in Bahrain. I think it must be partly Saudi influence that explains the very sudden escalation there, the very rare decision to actually use the army to shoot at protesters in the streets of the capital in a country that aims to be a Western-friendly banking centre. I think the British government, is going to remain a supporter of the existing monarchies in the Gulf countries. It always has been since the colonial times. I don't think that relationship is likely to change. But I think that Britain can be a force that calls for more meaningful reforms rather than just praising sort of cosmetic and ultimately fairly shallow reforms. I think it can use its influence to call for genuinely more pluralistic systems that address some of the issues that ultimately, if they're not addressed, will create further unrest and make the monarchies less sustainable.